They say the kitchen is the heart of the home, a place where passion and creativity blend to create magic. But what happens when that magic is stolen, when the very essence of your soul is plundered by the hands you trusted most? This isn't just a story about a husband's affair, it's about the insidious theft of a dream, the betrayal of a craft, and the quiet unraveling of a life built on a foundation of flour, sugar, and lies. Just wait until you taste what a stolen recipe exposed about the man I married, a man who swore to cherish and create. My name is Sarah. For as long as I can remember, the scent of vanilla and warm butter has been my truest comfort, the rhythm of whisking and kneading my most profound meditation. I am a pastry chef, not just by profession but by calling. My hands, scarred by countless burns and cuts, are a testament to years spent perfecting the delicate art of baking. My unique award-winning recipes weren't just formulas, they were extensions of my soul, each one a story, a memory, a piece of my heart baked into existence. My life was a symphony of flavors, a dance of textures, a constant pursuit of culinary perfection. And at the center of this world was Mark, my husband, a fellow chef. We shared a language of the kitchen, a mutual respect for the craft, a dream of building a culinary empire together. And then there was Emily, my sous chef. Talented, eager, she was my right hand, the one I trusted implicitly with the secrets of my kitchen, the nuances of my recipes. Our professional lives, from the outside, were a picture of harmony and collaboration, a testament to shared passion, mutual respect, and a deep, abiding love for the art of food. I believed in the transparency of our relationships, the unspoken understanding that we had no secrets from each other. I was the woman who stood by her man through thick and thin, through the triumphs and the challenges of a life dedicated to the culinary arts. Until the day the silence grew too loud, the distance too vast, the unspoken truths too heavy to bear. Until the day the people I loved, the people I trusted, began to reveal the rot beneath the polished surface. A rot that threatened to consume not just my marriage, but the very essence of my culinary identity. It started subtly, like a faint, almost imperceptible crack in the foundation of our seemingly solid marriage and professional partnership. Mark and Emily, usually so open, so engaged, began to drift. Their conversations became hushed, their glances furtive, their laughter a little too forced when I entered the kitchen. I'd attribute it to the pressures of the busy restaurant, the demands of our shared profession, the complexities of managing a bustling kitchen. They were under stress, I told myself, and I, as the understanding wife and head chef, needed to be patient. But the emotional distance grew, a chasm opening between us that no amount of shared meals or quiet evenings could bridge. Our conversations became superficial, devoid of the intimacy we once shared. They'd dismiss my concerns with a wave of their hand, a patronizing smile, or a quick change of subject. I'd find myself staring at them across the pass, strangers in my own kitchen, wondering where the people I loved had gone. The unease grew, a persistent hum beneath the surface of our perfect culinary lives. It was like a tiny, persistent crack in a priceless piece of pottery. Individually, each discrepancy was minor. Collectively, they began to form a dissonant chord, a subtle warning that something was fundamentally wrong with the harmony of my marriage and the integrity of our professional collaboration. I noticed a new, almost possessive attachment to their phones, a quick flick of their wrists to hide the screen when I walked into the room. They started taking calls in private, their voices hushed, their demeanors guarded. They, who had always been so transparent, so open, were now shrouded in a veil of secrecy. And the more I observed, the more I realized that this wasn't just about a casual distraction. This was about a deliberate, calculated act of deception, a hidden life they were building, one secret at a time, outside the confines of our marriage and our shared culinary dream. The unexplained absences became more frequent, more glaring. Mark would have supplier meetings that stretched into the late hours, his phone conveniently dead when I tried to reach him. Emily would be testing new ingredients in a secluded corner of the kitchen, her back always turned when I approached. Individually, these might have been dismissed as normal occurrences in the demanding world of haute cuisine. But together they formed a pattern, a rhythm of deceit that began to resonate with a chilling familiarity. I'd noticed subtle changes in their behaviour, a new confidence in Emily, a subtle arrogance in Mark that wasn't there before. Their eyes would meet across the bustling kitchen, a silent understanding passing between them, a secret language I was excluded from. They'd share inside jokes, their laughter echoing with a familiarity that felt alien to me. It was as if they were living a parallel life, a world where I was merely a peripheral character, an unwitting prop in their clandestine drama. I tried to rationalize it, to dismiss my growing suspicions as paranoia. They were colleagues, after all. My husband, my sous chef. The thought of them betraying me, of them conspiring behind my back, was too painful to contemplate. But the evidence, though circumstantial, began to accumulate, a relentless tide of unsettling observations. The way they'd quickly change the subject when I entered a room, the sudden silences, the nervous glances. It was a dance of deception, a carefully choreographed performance designed to keep me in the dark. And the more I observed, the more I realized that this wasn't just about a casual friendship. This was about a deliberate, calculated act of betrayal, a hidden life they were building, one secret at a time, with a person who was supposed to be my closest culinary confidant. The incriminating evidence arrived not as a sudden explosion, but as a slow, agonizing drip, each drop a corrosive acid eating away at the last vestiges of my trust. It began with a misplaced USB drive, Mark's drive, left carelessly on the kitchen counter. A folder caught my eye, new bakery project. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. Curiosity, a dangerous serpent, coiled in my gut. I opened it, my fingers trembling, half expecting a new business venture, a shared dream. What I found instead was a meticulously compiled dossier of betrayal, a chilling chronicle of their infidelity, and more devastatingly, the theft of my life's work. The drive contained early drafts of my unique award-winning recipes, complete with my handwritten notes and experimental variations. There were emails too between Mark and Emily discussing the development of these recipes, their plans to open their own competing bakery, and even mocking my old-fashioned methods. The messages were explicit, filled with pet names, inside jokes, and intimate details of their affair, intertwined with discussions about my stolen creations. The raw, visceral pain of discovery hit me with the force of a physical blow, leaving me gasping for air. It wasn't just the infidelity, it was the audacity, the blatant disregard for our marriage, for our shared dream, for the trust I had placed in them. The digital evidence was a dagger, plunged deep into my heart, twisting with every word, every image, every stolen recipe. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a desecration of everything I held dear, a theft of my very identity. The truth, unvarnished and brutal, lay bare before me, and in that moment I knew with a chilling certainty that my life, irrevocably altered, could never be the same. The initial shock was a suffocating blanket, leaving me numb, disoriented, unable to process the enormity of the double betrayal. My mind reeled, replaying every subtle sign, every evasive answer, every shared glance. The puzzle pieces, once scattered and meaningless, now clicked into place with horrifying precision. The man I had loved, the woman I had trusted implicitly, were strangers, masters of deception, living a double life right under my nose. The pain was immense, a raw wound that throbbed with every memory of our shared life, our shared purpose, our shared culinary dream. But beneath the heartbreak, a cold, calculated resolve began to form. My first instinct was to confront them, to scream, to demand answers, to unleash the torrent of pain and rage that threatened to consume me. But then a different thought emerged, a quiet whisper of strategy, a flicker of my own understanding of the cutthroat culinary world. I knew I knew their temperament, their ability to manipulate, to deny, to spin the narrative against me. A direct confrontation would only lead to a messy, emotional battle, a public spectacle that would leave me vulnerable and exposed. No, I needed to be strategic. I needed to use my knowledge of their world, of the culinary industry's obsession with originality and authenticity, to my advantage. The emotional toll of living with this knowledge was immense. I felt a profound sense of isolation, unable to confide in anyone, trapped in a silent world of betrayal. But the pain began to morph into a steely determination. This wasn't about a momentary outburst. It was about justice, about reclaiming my life, and about exposing the truth in a way that would resonate not just with me, but with the culinary community they had so brazenly betrayed. The digital evidence was my weapon, and I, the quiet chef, would be the architect of their downfall, using their own carefully constructed world against them. My years in the culinary world had taught me one undeniable truth. Originality is paramount. In a landscape saturated with talent, a unique recipe, a signature dish, is a chef's most valuable asset, their intellectual property, their very identity. I knew that plagiarism, especially in the high-stakes world of award-winning pastry, was a cardinal sin, a professional death sentence. I had seen careers crumble, reputations shattered, all because of a stolen idea, a copied technique. This knowledge, once a passive understanding, now became my most potent weapon. I knew that a direct accusation from a scorned wife would be easily dismissed, spun as emotional revenge. But irrefutable evidence of recipe theft, presented to the right audience, that would be taken seriously. That would trigger a public outcry, a professional investigation that once set in motion was almost impossible to stop. I understood the importance of discretion, of anonymity, of making the exposure appear organic, as if it had come from a discerning critic, a concerned colleague, or even a disillusioned former employee. I knew the language they used, the protocols they followed, the vulnerabilities they possessed. This wasn't about emotional outbursts, it was about precision, about leveraging my intimate knowledge of their world to ensure maximum impact. I spent hours poring over the digital evidence, analysing every detail, every timestamp, every piece of my stolen creations. I began to formulate a plan, a strategy that would expose Mark's infidelity and his professional misconduct. Not through a public confrontation, but through the very industry he was sworn to uphold. The culinary world's obsession with originality, once a mundane aspect of my daily life, now became the blueprint for his undoing, a silent, insidious force that would dismantle his life piece by painful piece. As I meticulously planned my strategic exposure, a subtle yet persistent anomaly in the digital evidence began to surface. The emails, while explicit, contained cryptic references to the network, to the silent partners, to the acquisition of talent. A fleeting thought, a whisper of unease, suggested that Mark and Emily's affair and the recipe theft weren't just about personal gratification or a desire for professional advancement. There were subtle mentions of market dominance, of eliminating competition, of a new culinary empire in their conversations, all linked to a powerful, shadowy culinary corporation. It looked like their affair and Mark's public persona were not just about personal indiscretion. They were a distraction, a brilliant, cruel smokescreen. While they were busy cultivating their secret life and I was consumed by their infidelity, a far more insidious plot was lurking beneath the surface. A plot to exploit my talent to gain access to my unique recipes, or perhaps to undermine my career for competitive advantage. The betrayal was a dagger, but these digital breadcrumbs, these brief, unsettling glimpses into a world beyond simple infidelity, felt like a poison, slowly seeping into the very core of my being. It hinted at a deeper, more insidious betrayal, a connection I couldn't yet grasp, but one that promised to unravel far more than just my marriage. This wasn't just about a broken heart. It was about a broken trust on a much grander, more manipulative and potentially criminal scale, and I had only just scratched the surface of a culinary conspiracy that threatened to dominate the entire industry. The digital dagger, the irrefutable evidence of Mark and Emily's betrayal and the theft of my recipes, had pierced through the illusion of my culinary dream. The initial shock had given way to a cold, calculated resolve. Confronting them directly was not an option. Their charm, their manipulative nature, their ability to twist narratives. I knew they would deny everything, gaslight me, and turn me into the villain. But I also knew my industry, the intricate web of culinary ethics and the unforgiving nature of public opinion. I had spent years observing the dynamics, the subtle power plays, the unwritten codes of conduct. This knowledge, once a passive understanding, now became my most potent weapon. My decision to act was not born of rage, but of a cold, calculated resolve. This wasn't about emotional revenge, it was about justice, about holding them accountable for their betrayal, not just to me, but to the very art form we both claimed to cherish. The thought of exposing them, of bringing down the people I had once loved and trusted, was agonizing. But the alternative, allowing them to continue their deceit, to continue profiting from my stolen creations, to continue living a lie, was unthinkable. I knew the risks, the potential for backlash, the accusations of being a scorned chef, the possibility of damaging my own reputation in a highly competitive field. But the need for truth, for an end to the agonizing uncertainty, outweighed every fear. I would use their own system against them, a silent, insidious force that would dismantle their lives, piece by painful piece. The stage was set, not in a courtroom, but within the discerning palates of the culinary world, and the curtain was about to rise on Mark and Emily's true characters. My plan was meticulous, a chess game played in the shadows of the professional kitchen. The goal was to expose their deceit, not through a public accusation, but through undeniable proof that would resonate with the culinary community, ensuring maximum credibility and minimizing any suspicion on me. I knew the importance of intellectual property in our field, the reverence for original creations. I crafted a carefully curated collection of evidence, stripping away any personal emotion, presenting only the cold, hard facts. The early drafts of my recipes, complete with my handwritten notes and experimental variations. There were emails too between Mark and Emily discussing the development of these recipes, their plans to open their own competing bakery, and even mocking my old-fashioned methods. I made sure to include specific details about the unique techniques I had developed, the rare ingredients I had sourced, the precise measurements that made my recipes award-winning. This would lend authenticity to my claim, making it appear as if a discerning eye, a concerned colleague, or even a disillusioned former employee was exposing the truth. I used a secure, encrypted cloud storage to store the evidence, ensuring no digital trace could lead back to me. Every detail was meticulously planned, every piece of evidence chosen with precision. It was a silent, insidious operation, designed to trigger a professional investigation that would expose Mark and Emily's deceit, not through my direct confrontation, but through the very industry they were sworn to uphold. The evidence was not a weapon of destruction, but a tool of revelation, designed to expose the truth, no matter how painful that truth might be. Amidst the emotional turmoil, a new resolve solidified within me. I would launch my own bakery, not as an act of petty revenge, but as a testament to my talent, my resilience, and the undeniable originality of my creations. It was a daunting task, a leap of faith into the unknown, but I was fueled by a fierce determination to reclaim what was rightfully mine. I poured every ounce of my energy, every creative spark, into this new venture. I found a small, charming storefront in a vibrant neighborhood, a place that felt right, a place where the aroma of freshly baked goods could truly sing. I designed the interior myself, creating a warm, inviting space that reflected my passion for baking, and then I began to bake. I used my original award-winning recipes, the very ones Mark had tried to steal, infusing each pastry with a piece of my heart, a taste of my soul. The early mornings, the late nights, the endless hours of kneading, mixing and decorating, it was all worth it. Each perfectly risen croissant, each exquisitely decorated cake, each delicate macaron was a small victory, a defiant statement against their betrayal. My bakery, Sarah's Sweet Creations, became more than just a business. It became a sanctuary, a place where I could heal, create, and rebuild. It was a testament to the power of authenticity, a beacon of hope in a world that had tried to dim my light. And with every satisfied customer, with every rave review, I felt a renewed sense of purpose, a quiet confidence that I was on the right path, a path paved with integrity and genuine talent. As my bakery began to gain traction and the buzz around Sarah's Sweet Creations grew, I began to subtly weave hints into local food blogs and interviews. My approach was indirect, carefully worded, designed to pique curiosity without making direct accusations. In one interview, I spoke about the importance of originality in the culinary world, emphasizing the years of dedication and experimentation that go into developing truly unique recipes. It's about more than just ingredients, I'd say. It's about the soul you pour into every creation, the story behind every flavor. True culinary artistry cannot be replicated, only stolen. In another, I'd casually mention the challenges I faced in protecting my intellectual property, hinting at past experiences without naming names. I'd talk about the bitter taste of betrayal that sometimes accompanies success and the importance of staying true to your authentic self in a competitive industry. I even participated in a local podcast discussing the ethical dilemmas faced by chefs when their creations are borrowed without permission. My words were carefully chosen, designed to plant seeds of doubt, to raise questions, to lay the groundwork for future revelations. I knew that the culinary world, with its tight-knit community and its discerning critics, would pick up on these subtle cues. They would connect the dots, piece together the puzzle, and begin to scrutinize Mark's upcoming bakery with a critical eye. It was a slow burn, a carefully orchestrated campaign of whispers and innuendos designed to prepare the ground for the inevitable explosion. I wasn't just baking pastries, I was baking a narrative, a story of truth and authenticity that would ultimately expose their deceit. As the opening date for Mark's competing bakery, Mark's Masterpieces, loomed closer, a quiet hum of anticipation settled over me, a strange mix of dread and exhilaration. I maintained a calm exterior, a mask of normalcy, interacting with Mark and Emily as if nothing were amiss. Their casual smiles, their easy laughter, their feigned affection, it all felt like a cruel mockery, a performance designed to keep me in the dark. But beneath my composed facade, a storm raged. Every promotional flyer, every social media post, every news article about their impending launch fueled my resolve. I watched them, these two people who had so brazenly betrayed me, moving through the culinary scene with an air of impunity, oblivious to the digital sword hanging over their heads. The tension was almost unbearable, a silent scream trapped within my chest. I rehearsed the moment in my mind over and over again, anticipating every reaction, every possible outcome. Would they deny it? Would they try to spin the narrative? Would the culinary community turn against me? The questions swirled, a relentless torrent of doubt and fear. But then I would remember the pain, the humiliation, the stolen recipes, and my resolve would harden. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about truth, about reclaiming my dignity, about exposing the rot at the heart of their professional lives. The anticipation was a crucible, forging my determination, preparing me for the inevitable explosion. I was ready to shatter the facade, ready to expose the truth, ready to face the consequences, whatever they may be. The culinary world, once a symbol of shared passion, was about to become the stage for a reckoning, a moment of truth that would forever alter the landscape of our lives. As I meticulously prepared for the unmasking, a subtle yet persistent anomaly in the digital evidence began to surface. The emails, while explicit, contained cryptic references to the network, to the silent partners, to the acquisition of talent. A fleeting thought, a whisper of unease, suggested that Mark and Emily's affair and the recipe theft weren't just about personal gratification or a desire for professional advancement. There were subtle mentions of market dominance, of eliminating competition, of a new culinary empire in their conversations, all linked to a powerful, shadowy culinary corporation. It looked like their affair and Mark's public persona were not just about personal indiscretion, they were a distraction. A brilliant, cruel smokescreen. While they were busy cultivating their secret life and I was consumed by their infidelity, a far more insidious plot was lurking beneath the surface. A plot to exploit my talent to gain access to my unique recipes, or perhaps to undermine my career for competitive advantage. The betrayal was a dagger, but these digital breadcrumbs, these brief, unsettling glimpses into a world beyond simple infidelity, felt like a poison, slowly seeping into the very core of my being. It hinted at a deeper, more insidious betrayal, a connection I couldn't yet grasp, but one that promised to unravel far more than just my marriage. This wasn't just about a broken heart, it was about a broken trust on a much grander, more manipulative, and potentially criminal scale, and I had only just scratched the surface of a culinary conspiracy that threatened to dominate the entire industry. The grand opening of Mark's Masterpieces was, as expected, a spectacle of culinary arrogance. He had spared no expense, transforming a prime downtown location into a sleek, modern bakery, all chrome and glass, a stark contrast to the warm, inviting charm of Sarah's sweet creations. The local food critics, the culinary elite, and a throng of curious onlookers flocked to witness the unveiling of what Mark, in his endless self-promotion, had declared would be the next big thing in the city's pastry scene. He was everywhere, posing for photos, giving interviews, his smile radiating a false confidence that grated on my nerves. Emily, ever the dutiful accomplice, hovered at his side, her eyes darting nervously, a subtle tremor in her hands that only I, who knew her so well, could detect. His pastries, my pastries, were beautifully displayed, each one a testament to my years of dedication. My countless hours of experimentation, my very soul poured into every creation. He had even copied my signature presentation, the delicate dusting of powdered sugar, the precise placement of a single raspberry, the subtle swirl of chocolate ganache. It was a grotesque parody of my art, a blatant theft of my identity, and yet the crowds were enchanted. The initial reviews were glowing, praising his innovative techniques, his bold flavors, his masterful execution. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth, a constant reminder of their deceit. He was thriving, basking in the spotlight, building his empire on a foundation of lies and stolen dreams. But I knew, with a chilling certainty, that his reign would be short-lived. The stage was set, the players were in place, and the curtain was about to rise on the true masterpiece, my meticulously orchestrated downfall of Mark's stolen empire. My plan was simple, elegant and utterly devastating, a blind taste test. In the culinary world, there is no greater arbiter of truth than the discerning palate of a seasoned food critic. I knew that a direct accusation would be dismissed as a jealous ex-wife's rantings. But a side-by-side comparison, where the quality and originality of my creations would speak for themselves, that was irrefutable. I reached out to a network of trusted colleagues, influential food bloggers, and most importantly, the city's most prominent food critics. I framed it as a friendly competition, a celebration of local pastry talent, a chance to showcase the diverse flavors of our city. I made sure to include a clause. All pastries would be presented anonymously, ensuring complete impartiality. I personally oversaw every detail, from the selection of the tasting panel to the precise temperature of the pastries, the lighting of the room, even the type of water served between tastings. I wanted no room for error, no possibility of bias. I ensured that both my bakery and Mark's were represented, along with a few other well-respected local establishments to further mask my true intentions. The invitations were sent, the RSVPs poured in, and the date was set. The tension was palpable, a silent hum of anticipation that only I could feel. This wasn't just a taste test, it was a trial, a culinary courtroom where the truth would be served, one delicious, damning bite at a time. And I, the quiet chef, would be the silent prosecutor, presenting the evidence, allowing the critics to deliver the verdict. The day of the blind taste test arrived, a symphony of nervous energy and hushed anticipation. The critics, a formidable panel of culinary connoisseurs, sat at a long table, their faces serious, their palates primed. Each pastry was presented on an identical, unmarked plate, ensuring complete anonymity. I watched from a discreet distance, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs as they meticulously sampled each creation. They swirled, they sniffed, they savoured, their expressions betraying nothing. But I knew my pastries. I knew the subtle nuances of flavour, the delicate balance of sweetness and acidity, the perfect crispness of the crust, the ethereal lightness of the cream. And I knew Mark's pastries, or rather my pastries, baked by his hands. The differences were subtle, almost imperceptible to the untrained palate, but to these seasoned critics, they were glaring. A slight overbaking here, a hint of artificial flavouring there, a subtle lack of the soul that infused my own creations. I saw a flicker of recognition in one critic's eyes, a raised eyebrow from another, a knowing glance exchanged between two others. They scribbled notes, whispered comments, their pens scratching furiously across their pads. The room was silent, save for the occasional clinking of forks against porcelain, the soft sighs of appreciation, and the almost imperceptible sounds of judgment being rendered. The air was thick with anticipation, a silent tension that built with each passing moment. And then the verdict began to emerge, not in words, but in the subtle shifts of their expressions, the knowing nods, the quiet smiles of satisfaction. My pastries, sample A, sample C, sample E, were consistently met with higher praise, with more enthusiastic comments, with a deeper appreciation for their complexity and originality. The critics, unbeknownst to them, were not just tasting pastries. They were tasting truth. The moment of truth arrived with a quiet, almost imperceptible shift in the critics' demeanour. They had finished their tasting, their notes meticulously compiled, their palates cleansed. The head critic, a woman renowned for her sharp wit and even sharper tongue, cleared her throat. "We have reached a consensus," she announced, her voice cutting through the hushed anticipation. "While all the pastries presented today were commendable, there was a clear distinction in quality, in originality, in soul." She paused, her eyes sweeping across the room, lingering for a moment on Mark, who stood at the back, a smug smile plastered on his face. Specifically," she continued, "the pastries from Sarah's Sweet Creations consistently demonstrated a level of artistry and innovation that was simply unparalleled." A murmur rippled through the room. Then she dropped the bombshell. "It has come to our attention," she said, her voice hardening, "that some of the recipes presented today bear an uncanny resemblance to the original creations of Chef Sarah. While imitation may be the sincerest form of flattery in the culinary world, it is a blatant act of plagiarism." The room erupted. Whispers turned into shouts, murmurs into accusations. Mark's smug smile vanished, replaced by a mask of shock and disbelief. Emily, who had been standing beside him, visibly recoiled, her face paling. The critics, armed with their notes and their discerning palates, began to present their findings, detailing the subtle similarities, the undeniable echoes of my unique techniques, my signature flavours. They spoke of the lack of originality, the blatant disregard for intellectual property, the unethical practices that had come to light. The public announcement was a tidal wave, washing over Mark and Emily, drowning them in a sea of condemnation. The culinary world, a tight-knit community that valued integrity above all else, had spoken, and their verdict was damning. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. The news of the plagiarism scandal spread like wildfire through the culinary world, fueled by the critics' scathing reviews and the whispers of my earlier interviews. Local food blogs, once praising Mark's innovative creations, now ran headlines screaming, "Stolen recipes" and "Chef Mark's deceit exposed." Social media exploded with outrage, as former customers, disillusioned by the betrayal, vowed to boycott Mark's masterpieces. His attempts at damage control were futile. He issued a series of rambling denials, blaming misunderstandings and unscrupulous competitors, but the evidence, meticulously compiled and presented by the critics, was irrefutable. His once loyal staff, many of whom had witnessed his arrogance and his blatant disregard for ethical practices, began to resign in droves, unwilling to be associated with a disgraced chef. Suppliers, wary of the negative publicity, cancelled their contracts. Within days, the crowds that had once flocked to Mark's masterpieces dwindled to a trickle. The once bustling bakery, a symbol of his stolen success, became a ghost town, its chrome and glass exterior reflecting only the emptiness within. The inevitable came swiftly. A notice appeared on the door, a stark, impersonal declaration of closure. Mark's masterpieces was no more, a casualty of his own deceit, a monument to his professional downfall. The public outcry was a symphony of condemnation, a collective roar of disapproval that echoed through the culinary community. The poetic justice of it was not lost on me. He had sought to build his empire on the ruins of my dreams, to profit from my stolen creations. Instead, he had destroyed his own, leaving him with nothing but the bitter taste of public shame and a future devoid of the respect he once craved. His fall from grace was complete, a cautionary tale whispered in kitchens across the city, a testament to the enduring power of truth and the unforgiving nature of the culinary world. As the dust settled on Mark and Emily's public downfall and I began to rebuild my life, a subtle yet persistent anomaly in the digital evidence began to resurface. The emails, while explicit, contained cryptic references to the network, to the silent partners, to the acquisition of talent. A fleeting thought, a whisper of unease, suggested that Mark and Emily's affair and the recipe theft weren't just about personal gratification or a desire for professional advancement. There were subtle mentions of market dominance, of eliminating competition, of a new culinary empire in their conversations, all linked to a powerful, shadowy culinary corporation. It looked like their affair and Mark's public persona were not just about personal indiscretion. They were a distraction, a brilliant, cruel smokescreen. While they were busy cultivating their secret life and I was consumed by their infidelity, a far more insidious plot was lurking beneath the surface. A plot to exploit my talent to gain access to my unique recipes, or perhaps to undermine my career for competitive advantage. The betrayal was a dagger, but these digital breadcrumbs, these brief, unsettling glimpses into a world beyond simple infidelity, felt like a poison slowly seeping into the very core of my being. It hinted at a deeper, more insidious betrayal, a connection I couldn't yet grasp, but one that promised to unravel far more than just my marriage. This wasn't just about a broken heart. It was about a broken trust on a much grander, more manipulative and potentially criminal scale. And I had only just scratched the surface of a culinary conspiracy that threatened to dominate the entire industry. The culinary world, once a stage for Mark's arrogance, had become the crucible of his downfall. The public outcry, fueled by the critics' damning revelations and the whispers of my earlier interviews, had been swift and merciless. Mark's masterpieces, once hailed as the next big thing, was now a ghost town, its chrome and glass exterior reflecting only the emptiness within. The news of the plagiarism scandal spread like wildfire, amplified by social media and the insatiable appetite for culinary drama. Former customers, disillusioned by the betrayal, vowed to boycott his establishment. His attempts at damage control were futile, though. His rambling denials met with a wall of irrefutable evidence. His once loyal staff, many of whom had witnessed his arrogance and his blatant disregard for ethical practices, began to resign in droves, unwilling to be associated with the disgraced chef. Suppliers, wary of the negative publicity, cancelled their contracts. Within days, the inevitable came swiftly. A notice appeared on the door, a stark, impersonal declaration of closure. Mark's masterpieces was no more a casualty of his own deceit, a monument to his professional downfall. Emily, his accomplice, also faced the consequences of her actions. Though less publicly scrutinised, her reputation within the culinary community was irrevocably tarnished. No reputable kitchen would hire her, her name now synonymous with betrayal and unethical practices. She vanished from the culinary scene, a silent casualty of Mark's ambition and her own complicity. The poetic justice of it was not lost on me. They had sought to build their empire on the ruins of my dreams, to profit from my stolen creations. Instead, they had destroyed their own, leaving them with nothing but the bitter taste of public shame and a future devoid of the respect they once craved. Their fall from grace was complete, a cautionary tale whispered in kitchens across the city, a testament to the enduring power of truth and the unforgiving nature of the culinary world. While Mark's empire crumbled, Sarah's sweet creations flourished. The blind taste test, initially a tool for exposure, had become a powerful endorsement, catapulting my bakery into the culinary spotlight. Customers, drawn by the story of resilience and authenticity, flocked to my doors, eager to taste the pastries that had brought down a culinary fraud. The local media, once focused on the scandal, now turned their attention to my success, celebrating my talent, my integrity, and my unwavering commitment to my craft. My reputation as a celebrated chef grew exponentially, my name synonymous with innovation, quality, and, most importantly, originality. I expanded my menu, introduced new creations, and even began offering baking classes, sharing my passion with aspiring chefs. My bakery became more than just a business. It became a symbol of hope, a testament to the power of perseverance, a beacon of authenticity in a world often clouded by deceit. I was invited to speak at culinary conferences, to judge baking competitions, to share my story of triumph over adversity. My success was not just about financial gain. It was about reclaiming my narrative, rebuilding my life on my own terms, and proving that true talent, coupled with integrity, would always prevail. The bitterness of betrayal began to fade, replaced by the sweet taste of success, the quiet satisfaction of knowing that I had not only survived, but thrived. I was no longer just a pastry chef, I was a culinary icon. My success a testament to my talent and resilience, a living embodiment of the truth that some creations, like some spirits, cannot be stolen. As my business flourished and the echoes of the scandal began to fade, a subtle yet persistent anomaly in the digital evidence began to resurface, not as a whisper, but as a chilling roar. The emails, while explicit, contained cryptic references to the network, to the silent partners, to the acquisition of talent. A fleeting thought, a whisper of unease, suggested that Mark and Emily's affair and the recipe theft weren't just about personal gratification or a desire for professional advancement. There were subtle mentions of market dominance, of eliminating competition, of a new culinary empire in their conversations, all linked to a powerful, shadowy culinary corporation. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about Mark and Emily's infidelity or Mark's personal deceit. This was a far grander, more insidious scheme, a generational pattern of culinary espionage. And Mark, I realised with a sickening lurch, was not just a participant, he was a key operative, a highly skilled facilitator. We uncovered a labyrinthine web of shell companies, manipulated supply chains, and deliberately obscured financial records, all designed to consolidate control over the culinary industry and its vast hidden profits. The affair with Emily, the manipulation of critics, the subtle hints in the digital evidence, they were all interconnected, part of a larger, more sinister scheme. Mark wasn't just having an affair, he was orchestrating a silent coup, using his charm and his position to gain access to unique recipes, to undermine competitors, to secure a monopoly built on stolen creations. Emily, I realised, was not just a sous chef. She was a co-conspirator, an accomplice, using her position within my kitchen to provide him with cover, to manipulate information to ensure the success of their illicit operations. The digital evidence, I now understood, wasn't just a tip-off about an affair. It was a desperate plea for help, a cry for justice from someone within the network who had witnessed the corruption and dared to expose it. The betrayal was a dagger, but this deeper, more insidious truth felt like a poison, slowly seeping into the very core of my being. It hinted at a culinary conspiracy that reached back generations, a network of deceit that had been operating with impunity, all under the guise of culinary innovation. And I had only just scratched the surface of a truth that promised to unravel far more than just my marriage. This wasn't just about a broken heart, it was about a broken trust on a much grander, more manipulative and potentially criminal scale. And I was now standing at the precipice of exposing a truth that would shake the very foundations of the culinary world. Suddenly, every seemingly innocuous detail, every fleeting moment of unease, coalesced into a terrifyingly clear picture. Mark's arrogance, his charm, his ability to always come out on top, not just signs of a natural leader, but the meticulous operational security of a seasoned operative. The cryptic references to the network, to the silent partners, to the acquisition of talent in the emails, not just casual banter, but coded language for illicit operations. The hints I had dismissed as mere red flags of infidelity were, in fact, breadcrumbs leading to a vast criminal enterprise, a network of deceit operating within the very heart of the culinary industry. The digital evidence, with its cryptic references to hidden documents and market dominance, was not just a random tip-off. It was a desperate plea from an insider, a silent cry for help from someone who had witnessed the corruption and dared to expose it. It was a carefully orchestrated act of defiance, designed to bring down a powerful criminal organization that had infiltrated the highest levels of the food world. Mark, I now understood, was not just a cheating husband. He was a highly trained operative, a facilitator par excellence, using his charm and his position to protect a criminal enterprise. He had used his impeccable reputation as a chef, his seemingly altruistic motives, and even the emotional vulnerabilities of his colleagues as a shield for his illicit gains. He had played me, the critics, and countless others like puppets on a string, all for the ultimate prize: vast sums of illicit profits and unchecked power within the culinary industry. My initial triumph over him felt hollow, replaced by a cold, simmering rage at the audacity of this generational scheme, its manipulative genius. They hadn't just cheated me, they had used me, exploited my talent, and turned my life into a stage for their criminal enterprise. But now, I had the knowledge, I had the true blueprint of their systemic deception, and this time, my retribution would be far more devastating, far more permanent. The game wasn't over. It had just entered a new, far more dangerous phase, one that would expose not just Mark, but the entire network of corrupt individuals who had helped this culinary empire build its foundation on stolen creations and human exploitation. I stood before the assembled culinary world, the glare of the truth illuminating the intricate web of connections, the hidden truths of a generational conspiracy. The secrets, once buried in the shadows of culinary ethics, now screamed from every line of the indictment. The truth, once a whisper, was now a roar. They thought they had won. They thought they had gotten away with it. But they had underestimated me. They had underestimated the power of a quiet chef scorned and the collective strength of a culinary community united by truth. And they had forgotten one crucial detail. In the world of true artistry, every stolen recipe, every manipulated ingredient, eventually leaves a trace. And some secrets once unearthed refuse to stay buried. They fester, they twist, and they will always find their way back to the surface. Because the real game, the one they never saw coming, has only just begun. And this time, there will be no escape. Not for Mark, not for Emily, not for the network, not for anyone involved. The blueprint for their systemic destruction is now complete, and I'm ready to expose every single line of their hidden code. Are you ready to taste what happens when the culinary world reveals its darkest secrets?